Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I am Stephanie Chestnut. I am with Dartmouth Health Behavioral Health Solutions. We are here for employees to offer you mental health services as well as lots of different resources. So, today we're going to be talking about adult children of emotionally immature parents. What does that mean? How does it affect you in life? And how does it affect your own parenting? And most importantly, how can you heal from the damage done by emotionally immature parents? So, just wanting to start off with a little introduction about emotional immaturity. So, that's a psychological state where adults maintain childlike emotional responses. And if you have an emotionally immature parent, I'm sure you have experienced this where it feels like they are having a temper tantrum. And oftentimes we walk on eggshells to avoid triggering those temper tantrums. So, this is work on the base, this is work based on the work of Lindsay Gibson, who is the author of Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. And she has many different books in this series, along with workbooks that you might find helpful as well. So, we can talk a little bit about the narcissistic traits that emotionally immature parents exhibit. So, that's often a sense of entitlement, a lack of empathy, a need for admiration, arrogance, manipulativeness, grandiosity, um, so on and so forth. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here today. Today, we're going to talk about relationships. Relationships are such a huge part of our lives, and they shape who we are, how we see ourselves, and how we experience the world around us. But they can also be very complicated and sometimes downright challenging. So, today, we're going to explore how to spot the red flags in relationships, the warning signs that something might not be quite right. And then we're also going to talk about the green lights, the things that make a relationship healthy, supportive, and worth investing in. So, whether you're in a relationship, thinking about starting one, or just wanting to know how to build stronger connections, there's something in this for you. So, by the time we're done, hopefully you'll have some practical tools to recognize what works and what doesn't, and how to create relationships that feel good and work for everybody involved. So, let's jump in. So, we're going to take a quick look at what we'll be covering today. First, we're going to talk about common relationship red flags. So, these are the behaviors or patterns that might signal that something unhealthy is going on. And some of them are obvious, while others can be a bit more subtle. So, we're going to break them down for you. Then we're going to move how to identify toxic patterns. And sometimes these patterns can sneak up on you. So, what starts as a small issue in a relationship can grow into something much bigger if it's not addressed. And then, of course, we're going to talk about the good stuff too, like how to build and maintain a healthy relationship and talk about the habits and mindsets that make a relationship strong and fulfilling. And then finally, we're going to explore the pillars of a strong and healthy partnership. These are foundations, things like trust, respect, communication that every healthy relationship needs. So by the end, hopefully you'll have a better understanding of the red flags to watch out for and the green lights that help relationships thrive. So, what exactly are relationship red flags? These are the behaviors or dynamics that can signal trouble in a relationship. And some of them might be obvious, others can be subtle and easy to overlook, especially early on in a relationship. So, first, we've got emotional red flags. These are things like manipulation, neglect, or gaslighting. For example, gaslighting happens when someone makes you doubt your own experiences or feelings. Maybe they say that didn't happen, or you're just imagining things. Over time, this can really mess with your confidence and sense of reality. And then there are the behavioral red flags. These include things like controlling actions, like maybe they try to monitor your every move under the guise of being protective, or dishonesty, like constantly lying or keeping secrets. These behaviors can slowly chip away at trust and your ability to feel safe in the relationship. And then we've got situational red flags. These are about the external factors that can create unhealthy dynamics like power imbalances. So maybe one partner controls the finances, or family dynamics create constant tension. Even external pressures like work stress can amplify problems if the relationship doesn't have a strong foundation. So the thing about red flags is that they don't always scream danger right away. Sometimes they show up as little things that are easy to dismiss. But over time, they add up and they can lead to much bigger issues if they're not addressed. So spotting them early is key. There are certain behaviors that should always be considered red flags and that require immediate attention. So these often cause significant harm. These behaviors should not be rationalized or excused. If you or someone you know is experiencing these, it's important to seek support immediately. First is physical abuse. This one's pretty straightforward. Any form of physical abuse, whether hitting, punching, pushing, something less obvious like grabbing in a way that's meant to intimidate, it's never okay. And then there are threats of violence or harm, whether somebody is threatening you, somebody you care about, sometimes even pets, or sometimes even threatening to harm themselves. It's a form of control and manipulation that's incredibly serious and needs immediate attention. Then there's sexual coercion or assault. Healthy relationships are always based on mutual respect and consent. If someone pressures, manipulates, or forces you into something you're not comfortable doing, that's a clear line that's being crossed. And then persistent emotional or verbal abuse is another major red flag. This includes things like constant criticism, name calling, or intentionally belittling you. Over time, it takes a huge toll on your self esteem and mental health. And finally, patterns of intimidation and control. This can look like isolating you from your friends and family, controlling your finances, or creating an environment where you feel afraid to express yourself or make your decisions. If you or someone you know is experiencing any of these, it's important to reach out for help. These behaviors are never okay, and you deserve to feel safe and supported in your relationship. So, first, we'll start with emotional red flags. These are behaviors that can subtly undermine a person's well being and the health of a relationship. They may not be easy to identify at first, but they have a significant impact over time. These can often be harder to spot because they're not always as obvious as physical or behavioral issues, but they can be just as damaging over time. The first one is gaslighting. This is when someone makes you question your own experiences or feelings. Like, for example, they might say things like, "You're overreacting, that never happened," things, like that when you know it did. It can make you doubt yourself and your reality, which is incredibly harmful. Next is in neglecting your emotional needs. This happens when one partner is consistently indifferent or dismissive of the other person's feelings. So, for example, if you're upset and need support, but they brush it off or act like you're being dramatic, that can be a red flag. Everybody deserves to feel valued and cared for in a relationship. And then there's overdependence. This is when one partner expects the other to be entirely responsible for their emotional well being. So it might sound something like, "I need you to make me happy." And it's normal for couples to lean on each other for support, but it's not healthy for one person to carry all the emotional weight. And then overreactions or the silent treatment. These are pretty unhealthy ways of managing conflict. Maybe somebody will explode with anger over something small, or they shut down or stop communicating altogether. Both of these make it really hard to resolve issues and move forward in a healthy way. So, emotional red flags might not seem like a big deal at first, but they create patterns that are hard to break. And so, it's important to recognize them early on in a relationship and think about how they're affecting it overall. And then actions often speak louder than words. So, behavioral red flags include observable patterns that erode trust or autonomy. So, some behavioral red flags, these are actions that might seem small, again, at first, but that can really add up over time and create problems in a relationship. The first one is inconsistent words and actions. So, actions speak louder than words, right? So when somebody says one thing and does another, that's a signal that something is off. So they might talk about how much they value honesty, but then you catch them being less than truthful, maybe a little white lie here and there. It can leave you feeling like you don't know where you stand. And then there's controlling behavior that's often disguised as concern. This one can be tricky because it might seem like they're just looking out for you. But if they're constantly checking up on you, following your location, telling you who you can and can't see, that's not concern, it's control. And a healthy relationship respects your autonomy. Dishonesty is a big one. This can be outright lying, it can be keeping secrets, or conveniently leaving out important details. But once that trust is broken, it's really hard to rebuild, and trust is essential for any strong relationship. Unpredictable reactions are another red flag. If you never know how somebody's going to react, maybe they blow up over something small or give you the cold shoulder, it creates a lot of stress. You end up walking on eggshells, and that is not a good way to live. And then finally, sudden changes in personality can be a warning sign too. Maybe they're loving and affectionate one minute and then distant or even mean the next. And you don't even know why without any explanation. It can be confusing and unsettling when somebody you care about suddenly seems like a different person. So the bottom line is that healthy relationships feel steady and secure, not chaotic or full of mixed messages. If you notice these behaviors, it's worth taking a step back and thinking about what's really going on. Now we're going to look at situational red flags. So these are warning signs that arise from external factors or dynamics within the relationship. So they might not seem like direct behaviors at first, but they have a huge impact on how healthy or unhealthy a relationship becomes. Red flags that arise based on circumstances or life events can often be harder to identify than things like physical abuse. So the first one is financial abuse. This happens when one partner controls the money to create dependency. So, for example, they might withhold money, restrict access to financial accounts, or prevent you from working. It's not just about the money, it's about the power and control they exert over you, and it can leave you feeling trapped. Next is escalating jealousy. This often starts small but can ramp up after major life changes like moving in together or getting engaged. A partner might start acting possessively, questioning your actions, or even isolating you from friends and family under the guise of protecting the relationship. And that's not love, that's control. And then finally, external pressures. This is like when someone uses outside factors like kids, family expectations, or cultural norms to justify harmful behavior. For example, they might say, like, this is just how we do things in our family, or use guilt about children to manipulate you into staying in a toxic dynamic. These pressures can make it harder to address the underlying issues. And then the tricky thing about situational red flags is that they're often tied to external circumstances, which can make them feel either normal or justified. But if you're noticing these dynamics, it's important to take a step back and think about how they're impacting your sense of independence, security, and well being. So, now that we've talked about the different types of red flags, we're going to focus on how to identify and address them. It's not always easy, especially when emotions are involved, but there are some steps that you can take to get clarity and action. Something that's important to note is that healthy relationships welcome feedback. Toxic ones dismiss it. And if you take away anything from this presentation, I think I want you to come away with that. Healthy relationships welcome feedback, toxic ones dismiss it. So, first of all, trust your instincts. If something doesn't feel right, don't ignore that gut feeling. Discomfort is often your mind and body's way of signaling that something's off. Pay attention to those moments, they're worth exploring. Secondly, document patterns. Sometimes it's hard to see a pattern when you're in the middle of it. So, journaling can help, writing down what happened, keeping a log, recognizing how it made you feel, and whether it's a part of a reoccurring behavior. And seeing these things laid out black and white can often help you recognize what's going on, especially when you're trying to justify things to yourself. Third, you want to set some boundaries. If something is bothering you, communicate it clearly. Be honest about your concerns and what you're not okay with. Then watch how the other person responds. A healthy partner will respect your boundaries, while someone unhealthy might dismiss or push against them. And finally, seek outside perspectives. When you're in the thick of a relationship, it can be hard to see things objectively, and that's where friends, family, or even a therapist can come in. So, somebody on the outside can offer insight and help you make sense of what's happening. And the goal here isn't to jump to conclusions or to label everything as like a toxic behavior, but to be aware and proactive. Identifying and addressing red flags early can save you a lot of heartache down the road. So now that we've talked about what to avoid, let's focus on what to build. We want to build healthy relationships. So strong relationships don't just happen. They are built on key foundations that help both people feel supported, valued, and secure. First, we've got mutual respect. This means recognizing and valuing each other's boundaries, choices, and autonomy. It's about treating your partner as an equal, somebody whose needs, opinions, and goals matter just as much as yours. And then we have open communication. Healthy communication means you can share honestly without fear of judgment or backlash. It's about listening just as much as it is about speaking and really hearing what the other person is saying. This creates a space where both people feel safe to express themselves. And then finally, trust. Trust is earned through consistency, reliability, and honoring commitments. It's knowing that your partner is going to follow through on what they say and that you can depend on each other in good times and bad. Without trust, it's hard to build anything lasting or meaningful. So these three foundations, mutual respect, open communication, and trust, work together to create a relationship that feels secure, balanced, and fulfilling. When these are in place, both partners have the freedom to grow as individuals while also staying connected as a team. So, what does a healthy relationship actually look like in action? A healthy relationship brings out the best in both people. So, here are some key signs that show that you are in a good, supportive partnership. First, emotional safety. In a healthy relationship, you should feel valued, secure, and most importantly, free to be yourself. There's no fear of judgment or retaliation when you express your thoughts or feelings. It's that sense of knowing that you are accepted and appreciated for who you are. And next is the support for growth. A strong relationship isn't about holding each other back, it's about cheering each other on. So, whether it's personal goals, career ambitions, or shared dreams, a healthy partner encourages the other to grow and succeed and doesn't feel jealous of somebody else's success. Then there's the balanced effort. Relationships thrive when both people contribute equally. And this doesn't mean like finances have to be split 50-50 all the time, but it does mean things like effort, care, and energy flow both ways. One person shouldn't be carrying the entire load in any particular category. And then healthy boundaries. A great relationship allows space for individuality within the connection. It's about respecting each other's times, interests, and needs outside of the relationship while still staying connected as a team. So, when all these things are present, it's a good indication that you're in a relationship where both people feel valued, supported, and free to thrive, not just together, but as individuals too. Sometimes it can be hard to know if you need outside help in a relationship, so let's talk about when it might be time to reach out for support. First of all, you deserve safety and respect in all relationships. So if you're feeling unsafe, physically or emotionally, that's an immediate sign to seek help. Safety should always come first. It's also a good idea to notice if you need persistent patterns of behavior and get support if you see things like controlling actions, verbal abuse, dishonesty, and those issues aren't improving despite your efforts to address them. And both people need to address them. Therapy is a great starting point, whether it's individual or couples therapy. Working with a professional can give you the tools to navigate challenges, improve communication, and process what's going on in your relationship. If you're facing an urgent situation like physical abuse, threats, or severe financial control, you need an immediate intervention. Resources like hotlines, shelters, or legal assistance are there to help you stay safe and protect your rights. And we have some resources at the end of this section. And don't underestimate the value of your support network. Trusted family members or friends can offer perspectives, help you process your feelings, and guide you toward the right resources. The key is to seek help when you feel overwhelmed, unsafe, or stuck. Reaching out isn't about admitting failure, it's about taking a proactive step toward protecting your well being and building a healthier, more fulfilling life together. So, I know this has just been a quick overview, but here's a quick recap of what we've covered today. So, first of all, red flags are signals. They're not always easy to spot, but they're important reminders to pause and to reassess what's happening in your relationship. Ignoring them often leads to bigger problems down the road. So, it's essential to pay attention to those warning signs, especially early in a relationship, because these things tend not to get better on their own, but only get worse. Second, healthy relationships are built on a strong foundation. Respect, trust, and open communication are the key ingredients. And these aren't just nice to haves, they're pillars that create security, balance, and connection for both people. Your relationship needs all three of those ingredients. And finally, when in doubt, seek help. So, whether it's therapy, support from friends, or resources for crisis intervention, there's no shame in reaching out. Everybody needs help sometimes. Your well being matters, and taking steps to protect it is an act of courage and self care. Healthy relationships take effort, but they are worth it. And so, by staying mindful of red flags and fostering the green lights and prioritizing your emotional and physical safety, you can create connections that truly support and uplift you. So, I want to thank you for being here today. I'm going to give you a few resources that we have here. So, in the Upper Valley, we have WISE, which is the main crisis support network. And you have their information here. And they have a text line that you can text, and their crisis line is 24/7. And then for Southern New Hampshire, we have reachnh.org. And these are their crisis services. And please note, you can also dial 211 at any time in any state, and you will be able to access resources that are available in your area. So, thank you for your time and attention today. I hope that this has given you some helpful insights. And please feel free to contact us with any questions you might have, anything we didn't cover that you're curious about. Thank you so much. And remember, relationships are complicated, but you don't have to navigate them alone. Support is always available, and you deserve connections that help you thrive. Some key traits of emotionally immature parents is that they're often so wrapped up in their own world that they don't have much awareness about what others, especially their kids, are feeling or needing. So that's a level of self preoccupation that is abnormal. Things often loop back to their experiences or their problems, no matter what the topic is. They have a really limited awareness of other people's emotional needs. Again, going back to that narcissistic trait. The conversation always returns to their experiences, what they've been doing, how much better they are than the person that they're speaking to. And it often feels like they're not really hearing or seeing their child as a separate person with their own feelings or ideas. Genuine empathy is really tough for them. They may go through the motions, but they very often struggle to truly understand or connect with what somebody else is going through.